At first glance, it looks like many other small towns. It has a business district, churches, and houses, just like many other communities of similar size. But it doesn't take long to notice that there's something very different here. For almost everywhere you go, there are statues of a friendly little animal. And throughout the town, the animal's likeness can be found on lampshades and in winter as ice sculptures. You can see the furry creature in windows and on the side of buildings. They're all depictions of a groundhog named Phil. The town that Phil calls home, this town, is Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. So he's usually called Punxsutawney Phil, or Punxsy Phil for short. And he's by far the town's most famous resident, especially every February 2nd, Groundhog Day. For several days before the holiday, this normally quiet community begins to hum with activity, or in this case, roar and scrape. A field called Gobbler's Knob is cleared for the holiday's most notable event, when Phil predicts how much longer the winter weather will last. About 2 miles away, in downtown Punxsutawney, many people begin to flock to the stores and take part in pre-holiday activities. They have fun doing art projects. They carve ice and wood. They go on hay rides, listen to rock, folk, and other kinds of music, run in a race, eat a big spicy dinner with many different kinds of chili, and watch famous and near-famous people who have come for the festivities. This one is an actor who was featured in Groundhog Day, a well-known movie named after the holiday. But as we mentioned, this is the real star of the holiday, Punxsutawney Phil. His home is in the town's library. Ben Hughes is one of the people who takes care of the furry creature. He makes certain that there's plenty of clean straw and wood chips in Phil's cage. He feeds the animal and keeps track of its health. As you might imagine, Mr. Hughes can answer almost any question about Phil and other groundhogs, such as, what does Punxsutawney Phil eat?
Groundhogs are vegetarians. For Phil, his favorite food would be dandelions, and he'll eat both the green part as well as the yellow part.
Another question people often ask is, who lives with Phil?
2 groundhogs live at the zoo with Phil, Phyllis and Barney. Groundhogs live in groups, and actually a groundhog's home is a lot like your home. Groundhogs have separate rooms with separate functions. So they actually have a separate bathroom, a separate living area, and separate areas where they sleep.
A very important question many people ask is, do groundhogs make good pets?
It's important to note that groundhogs are wild animals, and in most states you're not allowed to have a groundhog that lives in your home. So as an important reminder, when you see them in the wild, that's where they should stay.
And finally, this question, how did Groundhog Day begin?
It came from a time when people lived in a one-room house all throughout the winter, and they just longed and longed and longed for winter to be over. So they would look for different ways to kind of predict that weather.
Those people who lived on the continent of Europe already celebrated a holiday called Candlemas on February 2nd. On that day, worshippers brought candles into churches, and a priest would bless those candles, which were to be used during the upcoming year during church services and in homes. Many people believed the weather conditions on Candlemas Day foretold what the weather would be for the rest of the winter. If it was sunny on Candlemas Day, they believed a long, cold winter lay ahead. If the day was cloudy, cold, and rainy, they thought an early spring was on the way. Over time, tales and proverbs, or ancient sayings, developed around those beliefs. For instance, long ago in Germany, called the German Confederation in those days, people recited the following poem. On Candlemas Day, Badger looks from its hole, and if it sees both clouds and snow, it knows warm winds soon will blow. But if it sees bright sun and sky, winter winds won't soon die. In the 19th century, many of those Germans came to America and settled in the Punxsutawney area. The town's historical museum has many displays that show that the new settlers who came to these once held Indian lands became coal miners, lumberjacks, and farmers. Those early settlers brought traditions and stories from the old country, including the tale about how badgers could predict the weather. But there were no badgers in western Pennsylvania. So in time, people used groundhogs in the story because groundhogs were found in the area. At the Punxsutawney Weather Discovery Center, visitors can learn about both tales and facts. One fact they often learn is that the first official Groundhog Day in the town was celebrated in 1886 and has been observed there every year since then, to this very day. Visitors at the center can learn many things about the weather and weather forecasting too. They can learn what it's like to be a weather forecaster on TV. They can create a storm, one with wind, thunder, and lightning. And they can learn about tornadoes, including the direction in which those violent twisters turn. They can also find out about weather symbols, as well as the water cycle, in which precipitation, rain, snow, sleet, and hail falls to the earth from the sky, flows into rivers, ponds, lakes, seas, and oceans, moves back into the sky in a process called evaporation, and then falls back to Earth to begin the process once again. Weather scientists, they're called meteorologists, know a great deal about the weather today because they use computers, satellites, and a number of other advanced devices. So today, we don't use old wives' tales, such as when the cows stand tall, no rain will fall, to predict the weather. Even so, it's still fun to celebrate Groundhog Day, especially if you're in Punxsutawney. There, you can join thousands upon thousands of celebrants at Gobbler's Knob early in the morning before sunrise. Dancers entertain the audience while everyone waits for Phil to make his appearance. There are also speeches and a giant fireworks program. Right after sunrise, Phil makes his appearance, and his prediction is announced.
The sky shines bright above me. My shadow I see beside me. 6 more weeks of winter it will be.
Some people aren't too happy with Phil's prediction. Others are very happy about it.
I couldn't be happier. I love winter. Good weather for ice skating and going skiing. This is great.
Happy or not, after the ceremony, people pose for snapshots, take pictures, and get a closer look at the fuzzy animal. And everyone seems to agree that here's something else that rules. Yummy pancakes hot off the griddle. People who have just spent several hours out in the cold think they taste great. A Groundhog Day pancake breakfast is a perfect way to end the festivities. Each year, the people who celebrate Groundhog Day in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania have a wonderful time. They've seen interesting sights and have heard lots of great music. Many have learned a thing or two about groundhogs and even more about the weather, including how scientists now know how to predict the weather using scientific instruments, not old wives' tales. And you have learned how the holiday started and how it has changed over the years. The celebration may be a little silly, but then again, there's certainly nothing wrong with being silly at least once a year. On February 2nd, Groundhog Day. What is the name of the town where Phil lives? Phil's favorite food is A. Carrots, B. Dandelions, C. Hamburgers. The field where Phil makes his prediction is called True or false? Phil lives with two other groundhogs, Phyllis and Bobby. What is another name for a weather scientist? True or false? If you see a groundhog, you should bring it home to be your pet. A long time ago, people in Europe celebrated a holiday on February 2nd called A. President's Day, B. Candlemas Day, C. St. Patrick's Day. Instead of German immigrants used groundhogs in their stories about the animal's ability to predict the weather. The water cycle helps explain how A. Water flows in a drain, B. Fog comes from wind, C. Rain moves from sky to earth, then back to sky. Three kinds of precipitation are and